The coffee pot trembled in Emily's hand as she caught the assassin's whispered words. The man in the corner booth, lean, predatory, eyes like frozen steel, spoke into his phone with chilling precision. The moment he sits down in that window booth, the moment he settles into position, we take the shot. Cole Reaper Johnson, president of the Iron Wolves MC, had exactly 3 minutes before he walked through that door. 3 minutes before he headed straight to his usual seat. 3 minutes before a bullet ended his life in front of 20 witnesses. Emily's hands shook as the terrible mathematics crystallized. Assassin in position, target inbound, window of opportunity closing. She had one chance to stop a murder. Without thinking, without planning, Emily would do the unthinkable, rush across that diner floor, press her hand over a Hell's Angel president's mouth, and whisper 2 words that would save his life and destroy hers. Stay quiet. The bell above the door of the Crossroads Diner chimed as Emily Thompson wiped down tables for the 3rd time that afternoon. Thursday afternoons were usually predictable, but today felt wrong. The air carried a weight she couldn't name, like the pressure before a storm breaks. She'd been working at the Crossroads for 4 years, long enough to distinguish the regulars from the riders just passing through. The diner sat at the intersection of Interstate 40 and County Road 9, making it a natural waypoint for motorcycle clubs traveling across state lines. This afternoon, one man occupied the corner booth with unobstructed sightlines to the entrance and the window seating. He'd arrived 20 minutes before the Iron Wolves' usual time. His leather jacket bore no club patches, which was the first red flag. In the motorcycle world, that was like walking into a war zone wearing an enemy uniform. Emily refilled his untouched coffee and heard him murmur into his phone, "Sits in the same spot every Thursday." Her blood went cold. She knew exactly which spot he meant. Before we dive into what happens next, hit that subscribe button and join the Bikers Stories family. Drop a comment and tell us where you're watching from. Now, let's see how Emily's split-second decision changes everything. The rumble of Harley engines hit Emily's chest before she heard them. Through the diner's front windows, she watched 5 motorcycles roll into the parking lot in perfect formation, chrome glinting under the afternoon sun. The Iron Wolves had arrived. Cole Reaper Johnson dismounted first, 6'3" of weathered leather and silver beard, his Hell's Angels vest decorated with patches that told stories of roads traveled and battles won. Behind him, Travis Hale swung off his bike, already laughing at something one of the prospects said. The crew moved with the easy confidence of men who owned every room they entered. Emily's gaze snapped to the corner booth. Gray Harrison had gone completely still, his phone now pocketed, both hands visible on the table. His eyes tracked Cole through the window with the focus of a sniper lining up a shot. Emily watched his right hand drift toward the inside of his jacket. Slow, deliberate, practiced. The bell chimed. Cole pushed through the door, bringing the smell of engine oil and open highway with him. Travis followed, still mid-story, his voice carrying across the diner. "And I told him, brother, you don't bring a Sportster to a road trip unless you want to..." Cole wasn't listening. He was already moving toward the window booth, toward his spot, the same seat he'd occupied every Thursday for the past 2 years. Muscle memory pulling him forward, like gravity. Emily's eyes darted to the front door. A second man, Gray's partner, had positioned himself near the entrance, his back to the glass, arms crossed, blocking the exit. Her stomach dropped. This wasn't just a hit. This was a coordinated execution. Gray's hand moved another inch inside his jacket. Travis was still talking, oblivious, gesturing with his hands as the group spread out through the diner. Two prospects headed toward the counter where Hank was flipping burgers. Another member stopped to study the jukebox in the corner. Cole was 5 feet from the booth, 4 feet, 3. Emily saw it all in crystalline clarity. Cole would slide into that booth, his back to the window, his body perfectly framed in the assassin's line of fire. Gray would draw whatever weapon was hidden in his jacket. The partner at the door would ensure no one interfered. Travis and the others would realize what was happening only after the first shot was fired. Cole reached for the edge of the booth's table, preparing to sit. Emily's feet were moving before the thought fully formed. The coffee pot was still in her hand, forgotten, as she crossed the diner floor in 4 long strides. Her heart hammered so violently she could feel it in her throat, in her fingertips, in the space behind her eyes. Cole was turning, lowering himself into the seat. "Cole!" Travis started to say something, his smile still in place. Emily reached them. No plan, no strategy. Only the terrible certainty that she had 3 seconds before a man died in front of her. She did the only thing she could think of. She reached out and pressed her hand firmly over Cole Reaper Johnson's mouth. Time fractured into razor-sharp fragments. Emily's palm connected with Cole's bearded face, her fingers spreading across his mouth with enough pressure to silence whatever words were forming. The entire diner seemed to inhale and hold its breath. Travis froze mid-sentence, his expression shifting from confusion to alarm in a heartbeat. Cole's body went rigid as steel. Emily felt the muscles in his jaw clench beneath her hand, felt his entire frame coil like a spring compressed to its breaking point. His right hand shot toward his belt, toward the weapon she knew would be there, but his eyes locked onto hers. Those ice blue eyes, sharp enough to cut glass, searched her face with an intensity that stripped away every defense. Emily knew what he saw. Genuine terror, raw, unfiltered fear that couldn't be faked. Her pupils were blown wide, her breathing shallow and rapid, her free hand trembling as she raised it slowly, carefully, and pointed toward the corner booth. She leaned in close, her lips nearly touching his ear, and whispered 2 words that felt like they cost her everything. "Stay quiet." The moment stretched impossibly long. Emily could feel the weight of every eye in the diner on them. Travis's hand had moved to his own weapon. The prospects had stopped moving entirely. Even Hank had frozen at the grill with his spatula raised. But most importantly, she could feel Gray Harrison's predatory gaze locked on them from the corner booth, his hand still hidden inside his jacket. Cole's eyes tracked to where Emily was pointing. She watched his expression shift, saw the exact moment he registered the patchless stranger, saw him process the tactical positioning, saw decades of survival instinct click into place like tumblers in a lock. His hand moved away from his belt. The tension in his shoulders shifted from defensive to calculated. He nodded. Once. Barely perceptible. Then Cole Reaper Johnson did something he hadn't done in 2 years of Thursday visits. He straightened up, stepped back from the booth, and pivoted toward the counter with the casual ease of a man changing his mind about something trivial. "Think I'll order at the counter today," he announced, his voice carrying across the diner with easy authority. But Emily could see his body remained coiled beneath the performance, could see Travis and the others picking up on the subtle shift in energy. Emily's hand dropped from his face. She risked a glance toward the corner booth. Gray Harrison's face had drained of all color, his expression shifting from focused concentration to something approaching panic. His hand withdrew from his jacket, empty, and his eyes darted to his partner at the door. Some silent communication passed between them. The window had closed. The predictable routine had shattered. And the assassin sitting 15 feet away now knew that his carefully constructed plan had just collapsed into chaos. Cole moved toward the counter with measured steps, but Emily saw his eyes tracking every reflection in the chrome napkin holder, every shadow, every possible threat. Travis moved with him, no longer laughing, his hand resting casually near his hip. The Iron Wolves had shifted from relaxed to combat ready in the space of 10 seconds, and Gray Harrison was now the one trapped in a room full of predators who knew something had gone very, very wrong. The diner cleared like water draining from a sink. Within 90 seconds, the handful of civilian customers had been politely but firmly ushered out by 2 Iron Wolves prospects who'd materialized at their tables with apologetic smiles and $20 bills for their trouble. Through the front windows, Emily watched Gray Harrison and his partner slip out the back exit, moving fast but not running. Professional enough to know that running drew attention. The metallic click of the front door lock echoed through the now empty space. Hank stood by the entrance, his weathered face grim, following Cole's silent hand signal without question. Booth, now. Travis Hale's hand on Emily's elbow wasn't rough, but it wasn't gentle either. He guided her to the corner booth, ironically, the same one Gray had occupied, and slid in across from her. His voice dropped to a tone that made her spine straighten. Who were they? Emily's mouth had gone dry. She forced the words out. I don't know their names. The one in the corner, he was on his phone. I heard him say something about the moment he sits down and we take the shot. And when you all came in, he moved his hand inside his jacket and the other guy blocked the door, and her voice cracked. I just knew. Cole appeared beside the booth, his massive frame casting a shadow across the table. He didn't sit, just stood there with his arms crossed over his chest, those ice blue eyes studying her with an intensity that made Emily feel like he could see straight through to her bones, reading her, cataloging her, determining if she was threat or ally. You just saved my life, he said, not a question. A statement of fact delivered with the weight of absolute certainty. Emily opened her mouth to respond, to say something, anything, when her phone buzzed in her apron pocket. The sound cut through the tension like a knife. Emily pulled it out with trembling fingers. Unknown number. She swiped to open the message. 5 words. 5 words that turned her blood to ice water. We know where you live. The phone buzzed again. A photo loaded on the screen. Emily's apartment building. The image taken from across the street. Recent, the sun angle suggested within the last hour. And drawn across her 3rd floor window in digital red was a crude X mark. Her hands started shaking so violently she nearly dropped the phone. They're going to kill me, she whispered, the words barely audible. Travis leaned forward to look at the screen. His jaw clenched. Jesus Christ. Cole plucked the phone from Emily's trembling fingers with surprising gentleness. He studied the image for 3 seconds, his expression hardening into something that looked carved from granite. When he looked up, his voice carried the kind of certainty that could stop bullets. No, he said. They're not. He turned to Travis. Get her things. We move now. Where? Emily started. The compound, Cole said, already pulling his own phone out. You're under Iron Wolves protection as of right now. Your old life just went on pause, Emily, because the people who want me dead now want you dead too, and I don't leave my debts unpaid. The Iron Wolves compound sat 20 miles outside town at the end of a gravel road that didn't appear on any GPS map. High chain link fences topped with razor wire surrounded the property. 2 prospects manned the gate, both armed, both watching Emily with curious eyes as Cole's truck rolled through. Within 2 hours of that text message, Emily's entire world had been compressed into a duffel bag that Travis now carried into the main hall. The building was larger than she'd expected, a converted warehouse with high ceilings, exposed beams, and the unmistakable smell of motor oil, leather, and coffee. Motorcycles lined one wall in neat rows. A full bar occupied the far corner. And everywhere, absolutely everywhere, were men in cuts bearing the Iron Wolves patch, some cleaning weapons, others working on bikes, all of them stopping to study her as she entered. Cole led her to a worn leather couch near a wood-burning stove. Sit. Emily sat. Her hands still hadn't stopped shaking. Cole pulled up a chair, turned it backward, and straddled it with his arms crossed over the back. Travis stood behind him, arms folded. The posture was clear. This was an interrogation, even if they were calling it protection. "Here's the truth," Cole began, his voice carrying that same brutal honesty she'd heard in the diner. "The man you spotted is Gray Harrison, works freelance, usually out of Reno. The crew that hired him is run by Viper Harlan, enforcer for the Desert Reapers, a Nevada club that's been trying to push into our territory for 6 months." Emily's throat tightened. Territory. Trucking routes, protection contracts, business. Travis's voice was flat. "The kind of business that doesn't appreciate competition," Cole continued. "They wanted me dead to create chaos in our leadership structure. Figured they could move in while we were busy sorting out succession. Now that the hit failed, you're a liability. You saw Gray's face. You disrupted their operation. They'll want you eliminated to tie up loose ends." The words landed like physical blows. Emily tried to process them, tried to make them fit into the world she'd inhabited just 3 hours ago. A world of coffee refills and tip jars and Thursday routines. "Your old life is on pause," Cole said, his eyes never leaving hers. "You're under our protection now, but that means you live by our rules until this is handled. You don't leave this compound without an escort. You don't contact friends or family. You don't post on social media. You're a ghost until we neutralize the threat." Emily looked around the main hall. Leather-clad men with visible holsters, AR-15s mounted on the wall. A world so far removed from her apron and order pad, it felt like another planet. She thought about her quiet apartment with its single window facing the street, her predictable morning routine, the safety of being invisible, of being nobody worth noticing. All of it was gone, erased by 2 whispered words. Footsteps approached. Emily looked up to see Evelyn, the EE register worker from the diner, carrying 2 mugs of coffee. She was wearing an Iron Wolves support patch on her jacket. "You work here?" Emily's voice came out smaller than she intended. "I work there," Evelyn corrected gently, handing Emily a mug. "But I belong here. Iron Wolves' old lady. Travis's wife, actually." Emily blinked. She'd never known. Evelyn sat beside her, her voice softening. "You're not the first civilian they've brought under protection, but you might be the first one they respect this much." She glanced at Cole. "He doesn't bring just anyone inside these walls." Cole stood, his chair scraping against concrete. "Get some rest. Tomorrow we figure out how to end this." As he walked away, Emily clutched the coffee mug and stared into the dark liquid, seeing her own frightened reflection staring back. Absolutely not. Travis slammed his palm on the war room table hard enough to make the maps jump. You want to use a civilian as bait? Are you out of your mind? Cole's expression didn't change. She volunteered. All eyes turned to Emily, who stood in the doorway with her arms crossed, chin raised. I did. The plan was dangerous, maybe suicidal, but Emily had spent 3 days inside the compound watching these men strategize, listening to intelligence reports, feeling the noose tighten around all of them. The annual Iron Thunder rally was happening in 48 hours. 3,000 bikers converging on neutral ground 2 hours south. Word on the street said Viper Harlan would be there with Gray Harrison and at least 2 other enforcers, looking for an opportunity to finish what they'd started. Emily could hide behind these walls forever, or she could end this. They want me dead, she said, her voice steadier than she felt. So let's give them a chance. I'll be visible, vulnerable, and when they come for me, you'll be ready. Travis shook his head. They'll come for you, all right. They won't be able to resist. That's what terrifies me. Emily met his gaze. Good. Let them come. The Iron Thunder rally was controlled chaos, a sea of chrome and leather, engine thunder that vibrated in her chest, the smell of barbecue and motor oil thick in the air. Emily stayed close to Cole, playing her role as his guest. She wore no club colors, just jeans and a leather jacket borrowed from Evelyn. Visible, recognizable, bait with teeth hidden in the shadows. On the second day, Emily spotted him. Gray Harrison stood across the vendor area near a booth selling custom exhaust pipes. Their eyes locked across 50 feet of crowded space. She watched recognition flash across his face, followed immediately by cold calculation. He reached for his phone. Emily's pulse hammered, but she didn't look away. She held his gaze for 3 long seconds, then turned and walked deeper into the crowd. The trap was set. That night, Emily walked alone toward the maintenance area behind the rally grounds, her heart lodged somewhere in her throat. The sounds of the rally faded behind her, music and laughter replaced by the hum of generators and the crunch of gravel under her boots. She heard them before she saw them. Footsteps, 3 sets. Deliberate, unhurried. Shouldn't have gotten involved, sweetheart. Gray Harrison's voice cut through the darkness like a blade. He emerged from behind a storage container, flanked by 2 men she didn't recognize. One of them was spinning a knife in his palm. Could have kept pouring coffee and living your quiet little life. But you had to play hero. Emily's hands clenched into fists. She forced herself to hold her ground even as every instinct screamed at her to run. Gray took another step forward. Nothing personal, just business. Funny, a voice said from the darkness. I was about to say the same thing. The shadows came alive. 20 iron wolves materialized from behind containers, vehicles, and structures, emerging like ghosts from every direction. Travis stepped out first, followed by the prospects, then the full patch members. They moved with synchronized precision, forming a tightening circle around Gray and his crew. The hunters had become the hunted. Gray's face went white. His hand moved toward his jacket, but 3 guns were already pointed at his chest. The knife spinner dropped his weapon. It clattered uselessly on the gravel. Cole stepped into the circle, his massive frame radiating controlled fury. He walked straight to Gray Harrison and looked down at him with ice-blue eyes that promised violence. You came for my life, Cole said, his voice deadly quiet. You threatened my family. You made the mistake of thinking we wouldn't find you." He leaned in close. "This ends now." What happened next was brutal, efficient, and final. When it was over, Gray Harrison and his crew were on their knees, zip-tied and bleeding, surrounded by men who'd spent decades perfecting the art of making problems disappear. Emily stood at the edge of the circle, watching. She should have felt horrified, traumatized. Instead, she felt free. 3 weeks later, the Crossroads Diner reopened with a different kind of presence. New security cameras monitored every angle, reinforced doors replaced the old glass ones. And in the front window, right next to the faded "Open" sign, sat a sticker that made truckers do a double take. Iron Wolves support. Emily returned to work, tying her apron with hands that no longer trembled. But everything had changed. She'd changed. "You walk different now," Hank observed from the grill, flipping eggs with practiced ease. He grinned, his weathered face creasing with approval. Head up, shoulders back, like someone who knows her own strength. Emily caught her reflection in the chrome napkin holder and realized he was right. The woman staring back at her didn't look like someone who'd spent 4 years trying to stay invisible. She looked like someone who'd stepped into fire and walked out forged into something stronger. The bell chimed at exactly 2:47 p.m. on a Thursday afternoon. Cole Reaper Johnson walked through the door, and the familiar routine carried a new texture, weighted with shared history, with blood spilled and debts paid. Travis and 3 other members followed, their boots heavy on the checkerboard floor. But this time, when Cole approached, he didn't head toward the window booth. He walked straight to the counter where Emily stood. Without a word, Cole placed a small leather pouch on the laminate surface between them. The worn leather was soft from years of handling, tied with a simple cord. Emily looked at him questioningly. "Open it," Cole said quietly. Emily's fingers worked the knot loose. Inside was a silver medallion hanging from a delicate chain, beautifully crafted, the size of a silver dollar. Etched into its surface was a wolf's head, surrounded by intricate detail work that must have taken hours to create. "You're not a member," Cole said carefully, choosing each word with precision. "But you're not a civilian anymore either. You're family. You're an honorary wolf, and that means something." His ice blue eyes held hers. "It means we protect you, and you keep your eyes open for us." Travis stepped forward, a rare smile softening his usually stern features. "You're our eyes and ears in places we can't always be. You see threats, you report them. You're part of the pack now." Emily lifted the medallion from the pouch, the silver cool against her fingers. Her hands, steady now, unshaking, clasped it around her neck. The weight settled against her heart like an anchor, like a promise, like belonging. She looked around the diner with new eyes. Hank grinned from the kitchen window, spatula raised in salute. Evelyn stood by the register, her own support patch visible on her vest, giving Emily a proud nod that said, "Welcome to the family." The Iron Wolves scattered across the booths, no longer just customers, but guardian angels in leather, watching over what was now protected ground. Emily had spent 4 years in this diner staying invisible, keeping her head down, avoiding trouble at all costs. She'd believed safety came from being nobody, from going unnoticed, from never making waves. But the moment she pressed her hand over Cole's mouth and whispered, "Stay quiet," she'd chosen courage over safety. And in doing so, she'd found something she hadn't even known she was missing her entire life. She'd found her people. "Stay quiet" were the words that saved a life. But speak up. choosing to act, to intervene, to refuse invisibility. Those were the words that saved her own. Emily's story proves that courage isn't about being fearless. It's about acting despite the fear. It's about choosing to speak up when every instinct tells you to stay silent. She walked into that diner as a nobody and walked out as family, all because she refused to look the other way when it mattered most. Now here's the question we want you to answer. What would you have done in Emily's position? Would you have stayed quiet to protect yourself? Or would you have risked everything to save a stranger's life? Drop your answer in the comments below. We want to hear your story. And if you enjoyed this tale of courage, loyalty, and brotherhood, smash that subscribe button and join the Bikers Stories family. We've got more raw, real stories from the road coming your way every week. Hit the like button, share this video with someone who needs to hear it, and tell us where you're watching from in the comments. Remember, family isn't always blood. Sometimes it's the people who show up when it matters most. Ride safe out there, brothers and sisters. Until next time.